We are coming to you live from Terry Lynn's My Favorite Deli. Has been my entire lifetime, 66 years. One of my favorite Razorbacks of all time, Scotty Thurman. It's not our first rodeo together, and it won't be our last. Glad that you could be with me today, Scotty, on HogvilleNET YouTube Live.
Man, thanks for having me. Looking forward to talking some Razorback hoops.
We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff as we move forward. Today, we're talking about what everyone else is in September when football season just started. There's still a lot of vibes and a lot of energy for the basketball team because they just got back to campus. They're starting to practice, and I know you pay attention to it. And you've been as a player, as a coach on the Hill, as a coach in the state, at all levels, as a professional. There's not any basketball around here that we can't talk about that you don't have some expertise in, and that's why we're in here today.
Right. Well, like I said, I'm excited to be here, to be a part of it. I'm always excited to talk about Razorback athletics. And it's definitely an exciting time.
All right, Scotty, let's get into it. Calipari. That first of all, the elephant in the room is John Calipari, because you played for a Hall of Fame coach,
Right.
the GOAT at Arkansas coaching, and there's a lot of respect that Calipari, since he's been here just over a year, already showing towards Nolan. But he's also a Hall of Fame coach. What do you see? Are there any similarities in terms of that's the kind of guy that can lead Arkansas again? What do you see here in that dynamic?
I'm not so sure how similar they are. I will say that I've really enjoyed the fact that he's included Coach Richardson in a lot of things. I think that means a lot, not only to him, but to the program, and hopefully helps those young guys. I think the experience is the biggest thing that he brings. He's got a lot of talent over the years, and he's won one before, so he knows what it takes. And I think he's doing a good job in terms of assembling a roster and trying to put those pieces together to be able to make a long run, coming off of a Sweet 16.
Back in the day, and we know how this was under Coach Nolan, depth was key for what you guys were doing. It's a little different now, especially in the age of NIL. Calipari's choosing a path of maybe 8 or 9, keeping it tight and throwing some money at the top level guys. So there is more than one way to skin a cat. When you look at the roster build and the talent that he's assembled, part of it retention from his first year at Arkansas, a lot of it some newcomers. What are you seeing in there? What are some of the blends and some of the combinations you like so far?
Well, I think the biggest thing was getting Carter Knox back. Him coming off of a huge experiment for him to be able to go and get feedback from NBA teams. I think that's an experience that's invaluable. Played extremely well at the end of the season. Had that 20-point game against Texas Tech and knocked down 4 threes. Played extremely well, and then you bring in guys. Darius Acuff is a good guard, one of the better guards in the country as a freshman, and then also Malik Thomas. But then one of the guys who I think is going to be the glue to this team is DJ Wagner. When you think about his experience, the way that he made plays down the stretch last season, and then they've got the experience with the 2 big fellas that they had.
And you talked a lot of backcourt there. You brought up, you remembered that Carter Knox knocked down those 4 threes in that last game as a sniper. And there's been some great snipers. You're arguably the best to ever come through that program up there. There's talk with all the talent and some of the names you mentioned that there might be some question marks with perimeter shooting. That was sometimes a problem area last year. Have you thought through that a little bit, or do you have thoughts on that this far away from it, not knowing for sure?
Well, I think guys are going to shoot the basketball better. Obviously, it appears that they're putting in quite a bit of time. If you look at a big like Trevor Brazil, a returner, another experienced guy, he shot the ball fairly decent down the end of the season. I think Carter Knox is going to continue, with his confidence, and to me, it looks like Malik Thomas has all the confidence in the world. Billy Richmond, guy who we haven't mentioned yet, he made shots down the stretch of the season. They weren't necessarily 3-point shots, but they were shots. He performed at a high level, and I really love his energy.
I teased you a lot from back in the day when I was up at Fayetteville. Y'all had a Bill too. That wasn't really his name, but that's what you called him in practice. And he was pretty athletic, about 6'5".
Right.
Reggie Garrett.
Yes.
So, but anyway, all right. So you're going through some of that, and I start thinking about what you were coming before you were a champion. You had a freshman season where you had to carry the load for a while. Corliss got hurt against Memphis. Penny Hardaway, who's been in the news with Cal lately.
Yes.
Everything comes back together, it seems like. But you had to carry the team for a while. Huge games, the biggest freshman season ever. But then, what did you do in the postseason?
Well, we went out and did really what this team has done, which is added two bigs. The difference is these 2 bigs are very experienced.
Yeah.
They've had seasons in other places. They played junior colleges, so these guys are probably 24 years of age, which I think is going to make a tremendous difference with this team.
Yeah, that's one of the advantages of the portal, I think, is getting veteran guys there's some elements to that where they've already been coached, they got experience, they've matured physically, learning the ropes. And so it's different than what you guys were doing and how you did it, but y'all were good, really young, and it didn't really matter. No one knew how to push the right buttons. So you guys, though, your freshman season did get to a Sweet 16, and that's something that this team is coming off of. So what are the next, other than adding personnel, what are some of the things that y'all really started to put together that meant the difference, other than just bringing in those big bodies?
Well, I think part of the difference was coming in with a returning core group of guys.
Yeah.
On our team, we had myself, we had Corliss, we had Core, we had Dwight, and a host of other guys coming back. And with this group, you got Brazil, you got Wagner, you got Richmond, you got Knox, and then you add the experience with the two big guys, bringing them you win, and then you got great guard play. Even though it's young, I think the talent is going to be able to exceed those expectations of quote unquote being a younger group.
So it's an interesting mix, and you're not relying on first-year players. You're not relying solely on a bunch of transfers. You've got some retention, and I think that's an envy of a lot of programs when you look, because the SEC at times has been good in basketball.
Right.
When you played at Arkansas, it was a good league. There are other times after that, maybe not as strong. Now it's the strongest it's ever been, arguably. You look at last year, the greatest conference ever, 14 teams in the NCAA tournament. When you think about it and look at it from that perspective, do you think this team's built to roll through maybe a really strong SEC and have a chance to win it in the regular season?
Well, I think they've got a tremendous amount of balance. When you think about the experience, you think about the talent level. Obviously things have to fall right in the right place in terms of making shots and playing your best basketball at the right time. But I really like what Coach Cal has done in terms of assembling the team. You go out and get, I think Nick Pringle's going to be huge for us, possible shot blocker. Average like 6 and 5 in limited role. And then you look at Ewan, who's averaging 14 and 7 where he was at last time. And so coming here, you would hope to see that carry over. And then I think the wild card for this team is going to be Brazil. His athleticism, his ability. We keep waiting. He's shown some moments where he's been great. He's shown some moments where he's just been okay. And I think this year he's ready for a breakout year.
Okay, now I think that is a key. I think if you want to take those next steps, a guy like him, it's his 5th year of college basketball, 4th season at Arkansas, and it's not like he doesn't have the physical gifts.
Right.
It's not like he doesn't have some modern day front court stretch the floor ability. You mentioned some of the ability to shoot the three. If he blazes a trail like he did at the end of the season, how far do you think he can help guys like DJ Wagner, who's your backcourt leader and veteran, and some of these other pieces? Carter Knox, maybe potential all league. What combinations do you see as like? Because back in the day, it was kind of a three-headed monster. As good as y'all were across the board, it was you, Corliss, and Corey kind of was the big three.
Right.
Is there a big three, anything like that you could identify here, maybe trying to look ahead?
Well, I think if you go with the big three, you've got to consider Acuff at the point, with his talent level. The ball's probably going to be in his hands. Carter Knox coming back, being a big-time shooter. I hate to discount DJ Wagner. I just consider him to be a tremendous good guy. But as far as the three-headed monster, I think that third guy is going to have to be Ewan, just from what he's done in the past, averaging 14 and 7.
Okay.
You're going to need that.
He's also a strong offensive rebounder, and he can see he's a good passer at his size. And then he's only attempted 1 3-point shot in his career in games, but through the preseason in the summer workouts, we've heard that he's knocking down threes. I was in there with the media for 1 hour of practice back in July. He was knocking down threes. How important now is it that you need to have at least one, maybe a couple of big men who can make the defense keep them honest a little bit that way?
Well, they definitely got to be able to step out and make a three. If not a three, 15, 16 footer to be able to play high-low. Coach Cal seems to do a little bit of high-low when he has mismatches and size advantage and may pull one guy out and try to exploit the other guy. And so I think he's going to have to be able to make shots. I don't know if he's got to be a three-point shooter per se, but I think he's definitely got to be able to make some perimeter shots.
I like that answer. I think you're right, because I think that's still a bit of a mystery until he goes out and proves it in games that matter and not just practice. All right, so looking back at a championship season and some of the things it took to get there, you guys lost only 3 games that year, and you won 30 plus. We talked about how tough this SEC is. I don't know that if this team is built to sustain a 30-plus win regular season and only a few losses, but you don't have to do that to get all the way. We've seen teams with double-digit losses do it. What do you think when you start thinking about March as you get out of the regular season into SEC play? What do you think for this team, maybe some of the keys are going to be for them to continue, to build on some momentum and win in the postseason?
I think the biggest thing is going to be health. I mean, if you're going to play 9 guys, you've got to factor in a possible, knock on wood there, ankle sprain or a tweak somewhat. And so you want to try to be your healthiest, in March. And I think the cohesion as a unit, the guys being experienced with that cross blend of returners as well as the youth, that team chemistry is going to be huge. And then, you got to be able to make shots. At the end of the day, you got to be able to put the basketball in the hole, and rebound is going to be a key. And I think those 2 big guys, additions along with Brazil, I think they'll be able to cover that.
Those are great points. And, this team, we mentioned how tough the SEC is. It's also arguably the toughest schedule Arkansas has ever put together when you look at what Calipari's done to schedule non-conference, plus how tough this SEC is. The previous toughest schedule ever was when you were coming off a national championship season. You had the big target, but you didn't just have a big target on your back coming into the next season. You had a tough, brutal schedule sitting there waiting on you, and that made it even more of a gauntlet. And you get back to the title game. We know how that played out. But you've been through those fires against a brutal schedule. When you look at Arkansas's non-conference this year, first week of the regular season, that weekend, you go on the road to Michigan State in East Lansing, Tom Izzo. I mean, you're going to play Houston, what is going to be, was last year's national run-up, going to be picked as top 3 or 4 in the country preseason. Texas Tech, who knocked you out in the Sweet 16, they got the $4 million man back, JT Toppin, and they're going to be projected up there. You've got Louisville at home. Louisville's back with Pat Kelsey. You get them in the ACC Challenge. A lot of really tough. Duke. How did I leave out Duke?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's in Chicago. Duke doesn't. They don't want any more of Arkansas since you sent them home.
And they were able to beat them, 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. In a weird season, it didn't play out that well. You beat Duke, and it was a top 10 rated team. Yeah. All right, so it's a tough schedule. We know that. You've been through that gauntlet again in year 3 for you, and you get back to a title game. How do you navigate something like that? I mean, how do you? Because you had some lumps in there.
Right. Well, I think you have to go through it. I think the experiences of what you play on, but then at the same time, iron sharpens iron. You want to be able to play against the best. When you go to a school like Arkansas, you don't want to play the smaller schools because that doesn't necessarily get you prepared for the gauntlet that you're going to go through. And anytime you're looking at a championship caliber team, you want to look at who can win 6 games and who's going to prepare you for those 6 games. Because you got to be hot, you got to be healthy, and then you got to be playing your best basketball at that time. I think with that schedule, every game is going to be a tournament atmosphere. And so when you finally get to March, hopefully, whether that be the SEC tournament and after that, you would have played so many big games that the next game won't be as big as the one you just played. Each one is the same.
Look, just to remind fans, I mean, you started with Calipari and UMass in that season opener, basically in their backyard. We know how that went. A couple of days later, Allen Iverson, Georgetown, and Memphis. You went on the road to a Missouri team that went a long way, to the Elite Eight in the NCAA tournament. Almost beat UCLA, who we know what happened there. Tulsa, who was no pushover, had been to the Sweet 16 the year before. You beat them there. They get back to the Sweet 16 that year. A road game at SMU, a road game at Missouri, and then the Rainbow Classic. Everybody over there was undefeated when you beat them. Oklahoma, Cincinnati, Iowa. And then Memphis in February at Bud Walton. That was a war. Who do you remember coming off the bench with kind of wearing a cape? He wasn't a typical top 10 rotation guy all the time, but he really helped salvage that game. I'm putting you on the spot here. Who came in and helped?
Was it Elmer Martin?
It was Elmer Martin, man. Nolan. When you're getting down to Elmer, no diss on Elmer, but at that point of the season, the game was kind of going that way. Elmer came in and made some plays. Dick Vitale was in the house. That was an ESPN televised non-conference game. I got to talk to Dickie V at halftime and before the game. It was a really cool atmosphere. But back in the day, Bud Walton was jam-packed. Didn't matter who it was. It was always big billing. So you know the rigors of a tough non-con. And that was a really good SEC. I also remember that season, Super Bowl Sunday. What happened at Kentucky? 2 top 5 rated teams coming into Bud Walton Arena.
Yeah, that was always a huge game. To be able to know that everybody's watching you because everybody's preparing for the Super Bowl. You're on national TV and you're going up against one of the premier programs to be able to beat a blue bud, right there on Super Bowl Sunday. That's huge.
Well, what happened to him though? What happened at the end? It could have gone either way.
Could have gone either way. Are you talking about referring to the game at home in front of Super Bowl Sunday? I mean,
yeah.
I hit a shot at the end.
That's right. They got the Thurman dagger.
Yeah.
Duke wasn't the only one. Tennessee got one in their house. That championship. So, I mean, you did a lot of that. So basketball's obviously different now. It's come a long way, but some things are the same. If you were to talk to anybody as a player to player, or someone who's coached at that level, because you have to talk differently as a coach to players, but even player to player, to some of the guys that are looking ahead this year and thinking, we got a chance, what would you say to them?
Well, I would tell them stay locked in. Don't read the press clippings. Back in our day, it was the newspaper and magazine, whether that be Reed Smith magazine or Athlon or what have you.
Yeah.
Now they run to the phones, and there's so much social media hype, whether that be on Facebook, on X, or wherever. And so I would just challenge them to keep everything in the locker room, stay together. You're never as good as you think you are. You're never as bad as you think you are. Just be prepared for the next game like it's a new test each and every game.
Should Cal continue to bring Nolan in for pep talks? I think that's a winning formula.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your coach, What do you think?
Well, I mean, he's one of the best to do it. He can definitely get you prepared. He can get a group prepared. Not so much sure how much oomph he has in him right now, but I do know that when he gets an opportunity to address those kids, he's definitely excited.
Well, I'm not going to put you on the spot to fully make, final record predictions of where this team's going to go. But what do you think? What do you think maybe the ceiling is? What do you see as a realistic potential if everything goes well?
I mean, talking to an ex-player and a Razorback faithful, those guys coming off of the Sweet 16 and what they added, I'm expecting Final Four. I mean, I won't put the pressure on them necessarily to win it in September, but I do expect the Final Four appearance.
Wow, now that's saying a lot, and then you have a lot of faith in the coaching and in the players and in the program, and that doesn't surprise me because you've been there and tasted what that's like at the highest level, so you know what you're talking about when you say that. Scotty, it's been great catching up with you, getting your thoughts, picking your brain. Anything else you want to say to Hog fans before we peel out of here as as Razorbacks royalty here in the 501 at Terry Lynn's, my favorite deli for a lifetime?
Well, I would say for the Razorback faithful to just remain patient with the team. I think sometimes we have a loss and the world's ended. If you go back and you look at last year, we didn't have a coach until late in the year, and all of a sudden we were in the Sweet 16 when in January it didn't look so good. And so I was just asking the fans to be patient with the group, give them the opportunity to gel and come together, and hopefully we'll be right where we're supposed to be in March.
You heard it from someone who knows what he's talking about. Scotty Thurman, the Rustin rifle, the biggest shot in school history, a lot of other important shots along the way that define a great career, and a guy who's coached. So when you hear him speak about these things, pay him his due and be at full attention because he knows what he speaks of. Tim Jackson, owner of Terry Lynn, thank you for having us in here. We appreciate it. Really appreciate that. Until next time, guys, thank you for joining us on HogvilleNET YouTube Live. It's not the last time you'll see me with this guy picking up through the season, and we're going to talk about a myriad of other things. But today we got off to a great start talking about this upcoming Razorback season. Until next time, thanks for being here.